George Carlin mattered because he wasn't just a comic. He was a satirist who gave us a painfully honest vision of ourselves. George Carlin was fearless. He told it like it was, and he told it in a very funny way.
Tom O'Neill, LA Times columnist, remembering the late comedian George Carlin. Carlin was indeed groundbreaking. He pioneered modern political satire, and now he graces the walls of the National Portrait Gallery.
He's a big fan. A portrait of Carlin will hang in the gallery's Recognize section. Carlin was voted by members of the public for the gallery's Recognize campaign that allows people to choose what goes on display. Carlin beat out two other comedians, included Ellen DeGeneres and Groucho Marx.
So the people have spoken. In my opinion, they spoke the right way. And I'll resist the temptation to lapse into a Carlin routine. Not that one, no.
Okay.
But we are going to bring in from Southern California our good friend James Hirsen with Hollywood Happenings, the obligatory alliteration. So James, George Carlin as a work of art.
No question. A genius, a comic genius, an incredible writer, as well as a stand-up comedian. Almost every list that talks about the top stand-up comedians of all time include George Carlin, usually in the top three. As a matter of fact, Comedy Central has a list, and they have George Carlin number 2 behind Richard Pryor, ahead of Lenny Bruce, who he was influenced by and arrested along with Lenny Bruce. He's also known for a landmark legal decision, the Pacifica case, where his routine about the 7 words you cannot say that I cannot say on Newsmax TV, those 7 words went to the United States Supreme Court to determine whether the FCC could regulate that which is indecent. And in a 5-4 decision, analyzing George Carlin's content, which was aired during the day, the Supreme Court said, hey, we got to protect children. And that was the main rationale for the so-called decency laws of the FCC, which ended up fining Howard Stern over and over and over again. So George Carlin's remembered for that. For me personally, his genius is in that baseball versus football stand-up routine where he just observed the use of the words and how different they were, baseball being a light springtime activity where batters are up, and football being a battle on the gridiron where each particular move is called a down. It was just brilliant, and that's what he did best.
He was. Now, real quickly, before we move on to another topic, Carlin, we have some previously unreleased material that may be coming out. That's the rumor.
Yeah, it is audio material. I think it's actually audio and video material that's coming out, things that have never been heard. And I'm sure there's going to be a huge demand because Carlin was able to also, even right before his death, where he was given the Mark Twain Award 4 days before he died. So it ended up being given to him posthumously in terms of the actual award. But he spanned generations. Young people who were 20 years old were showing up to hear this guy with the gray-haired ponytails. So I'm sure any new material, there's going to be a big demand for it.
And in fact, as an old sportscaster, the thing that I enjoyed, you remember this bit, right, James? He'd go, and now for some partial scores, Cleveland 3, which I thought was kind of an interesting thing. No fibbing. When I was in school at NC State, thus my Wolfpack tie for our basketball team tonight, nice. George Carlin came to town. I found out the hotel he was staying in, and I gave him a call. And he was actually nice, because I think I woke him up. He had signed in the guest ledger, Are You Nuts was the name he put in. And then he wrote Lois Lane in Lowell, Massachusetts as his address. So sorry if there's a real Are You Nuts.
Well, it makes sense that he would be nice because George Carlin was an equal opportunity hater.
That's true.
He hated all human beings.
Well, yeah, but he also was funny to him. Look, time has got us here. We're coming back with more with James Hirsen. Stay tuned.
There's an enormous country in between the coasts. an enormous country, and that's a country that's all about the United States of America, faith, and family.
The views of Mark Burnett, the famed producer of programs like The Bible, Shark Tank, and Survivor, to name a few, talking with Newsmax contributor Larry Elder about how this nation values faith and family.
And Newsmax Magazine's April issue features Mark Burnett and his new miniseries, AD, The Bible Continues, right on the cover this month. Burnett talks about those values in Hollywood and how faith-based films are growing in popularity.
And speaking of that growing trend, let's turn back to our Hollywood friend. Yes, I'll lapse into verse, and it can't sound worse. As we continue the conversation with James Hirsen, I will spare you the doggerel and go instead to high-minded notions of faith. Here it is, AD, The Bible Continues, starting Easter Sunday evening. James, in your mind, what's behind the surge in faith-based movies and TV programs?
Well, it's an underserved part of our population, of the market. The vast majority of Americans are self-identified people of faith. Vast majority of Americans are self-identified Christians. This is the season of the highest Christian holiday, celebrating the passion, the death, and the resurrection of Christ. And we saw this happen, speaking of the Passion of the Christ, years ago, Mel Gibson's movie, which broke box office records and woke up executives in Hollywood. And now virtually every studio has a faith-based division. There are publicity machines set up to market these films to various megachurches across the country. And Mark Burnett and Roma Downey are just following up their huge success, the Bible miniseries, with a sequel to that, which will appear on a major broadcast network, NBC, which is Mark Burnett pretty much owns that network almost. And it's serving this. And so we've seen more product, and it's the profit margins that have the executives really jealous of these faith-based movies. Movies like God's Not Dead, which cost $2 million and took in almost $70 million. That's the kind of profit margin that any business person wants to get. We have a great article I participated in the Newsmax magazine on this subject. And, it's really something people are interested in, and they want to know for their families, because we have so much, let's say, not so good material coming out of Hollywood. It's really nice when something comes out that actually lifts people up.
James, can you give us a little teaser on what we can expect to read about in this coming month's issue of Newsmax?
Well, really, it's some of the things I mentioned. It's the fact that faith-based movies have a historical legacy that goes back to the golden age of Hollywood, the studio system. We think of the classic film, The Ten Commandments. And unfortunately, people who are not believers have been producing films like the remake of the Ten Commandments, Exodus, Gods and Kings, which were not necessarily respectful to the scripture. And there's a pattern that those that are respectful, that really serve the customers, people who care about faith and care about the Bible, those films are successful and make a lot of money. And it's very interesting to see how Hollywood seems to resist that, the Hollywood infrastructure, but they can't resist the box office. And so they're going to come out, inevitably, some people are, with decent films that really appeal to actual faith-filled moviegoers.
James, you made mention of your participation. You're justifiably proud of working on this month's cover story in Newsmax magazine. Likewise, I've got to take time out to say it was my honor to anchor a special that will be shown here on Newsmax TV. The program is entitled, Can the Bible Save Hollywood? Kind of a good double meaning there. You'll be able to see that beginning Thursday, April 2nd at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. James Hirsen, always good to see you, sir. We look forward to getting back together with you. Coming up next, Veronica Scott. Stay with us.